What's up guys, my name is Ace, and while I have been enjoying my time a lot with the Battlefield 6 beta, there is one key gameplay bug that absolutely needs to be addressed. And it's something where a lot of people were doubting that this actually exists. However, I was able to replicate this multiple times, and not only prove that this bug is present, but I believe I've also isolated what the cause of this bug is. So I really hope they can get this one fixed before the launch of the game. And this bug has to do with your aim down sight spread, or bloom as most in the community like to call it these days. Basically where your bullets don't go where you're aiming, which is an intended mechanic if you're spraying for a long period of time and if you're also moving in a gunfight. It can and will cause this inaccuracy with your gun to varying degrees depending on the gun. However, if you run into this bug, you are getting maximum inaccuracy with your shots all the time, regardless of your stance, regardless of whether or not you're tap firing. You can even switch your gun into semi-auto mode and it will still happen until you reset it, which I will also show you guys how to do if you ever do run into this. But let's first have a look at the root of this. The first time I became aware of this is when Shroud pointed it out on his stream. He noticed that while using the most accurate full auto in the game, the AK-205, even while crouched and standing still in this situation, his bullets were going nowhere near where he was aiming. And according to him, in order to fix that, you have to slide twice, and then his gun was shooting straight after that. And I did see quite a few responses of people doubting him with this clip, and basically just saying he was blaming his bad aim on a bug. But if you zoom in and play it in slow motion, you can see his shots are not going where his reticle is. And again, right here, he's crouched and standing completely still. So this absolutely shouldn't be happening at all. And therefore, it clearly is a bug. And like I said, I was able to replicate this multiple times, both in-game as well as in the firing range. And you can see that really clearly here. I'm also using the AK-205 here. That's just because this is a really accurate gun, and therefore it's good to show off how bad this bug really is. But this bug will apply to any gun in the game. It's not limited to just this gun. And you can see my shots are going all over the place, even when I'm proned out and not moving. I can hardly hit that target, even with tap firing. This also works if you reload your gun. It still applies. Again, as I said earlier, you can even switch your gun into semi-auto mode. It will still be inaccurate until you slide. Sliding will reset this bug, as Shroud guessed, just based on his feel and experience. You don't have to slide twice like he mentioned. You just need to do one slide and that will reset the bug for you. So that's good to know. If you ever notice your gun is just not firing where it should be and you're getting massive amounts of aim down sight spread when you shouldn't be getting massive amounts, when you're not moving or spraying full auto for a long period of time, just make sure you implement a slide and that should fix your gun. And now let's talk about what causes this and how to replicate this. I spent a ton of time attempting to replicate this, both in the firing range as well as in real games. And every time I managed to replicate this, I look back at the footage and realize this is always caused by some form of an interrupted slide. And not just any interrupted slide, this has to be timed just right. It has to be interrupted very early on in the slide. So sometimes you can trigger this just by like slide canceling yourself, but more often it seems this is going to be interrupted by sliding into some sort of geometry. So if you're sliding on some like really uneven terrain or rocks or rubble, or on the table on the back of the firing range where you have some boxes and stuff there, that also was able to trigger this for me. When this happens, I believe what's going on here is your slide gets canceled, but as far as your aim down sight spread calculation goes, it still believes you are in a sliding state, and therefore it's giving you the amount of spread that you should be experiencing with that gun while sliding. And this would also explain why sliding is the thing that resets this. So looking back at that Shroud clip, it turns out he actually triggered this bug much earlier on in the clip. I believe it was right here, it was this moment where he actually triggered this bug. And he was still able to get a kill right after this, but that's because he was close enough that the bloom didn't really make a big difference. So there we go, that's the bug, that's how to replicate it, and that's what I believe is going on with this. This is obviously a very serious gameplay related bug because if this ever happens to you, there isn't like an obvious indicator letting you know that this is what's happening. You have to be paying attention to your tracers, which is one of the main reasons that I really don't like aim down sight spread like this, because the visual feedback just isn't there the way that actual recoil or sway would simulate. Because at least with high recoil, you can see where your shots are going and why your shots are going there, but not with aim down sight spread, at least not easily. The only way to really know is to pay attention to those tracers, and therefore when it bugs out like in this situation, it's just gonna feel like the hit detection sucks, when in reality, you're just experiencing this bug. Now, to be fair, when it comes to this bug, I don't believe this is something that's going to be overly prevalent for a lot of players out there. Maybe for people that are just sliding at every possible opportunity, they may experience it more often, but then again, they're also more likely to reset it and therefore not even notice when they do trigger it because they're sliding so often. But even just knowing that this can potentially happen at any moment after a slide is definitely not a good feeling. Just knowing in the back of your mind, like, is my gun going to shoot straight when I pull the trigger? I don't know. It might not. And that's why this definitely needs to be taken care of. Hopefully this is also the only instance that a bug like this can be triggered. It is also possible that this is just one method of triggering that. Perhaps there are other methods as well that could trigger the same sort of issue that aren't even related to sliding in the first place. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that one for sure. But that is gonna wrap it up for today's video. Make sure you're keeping an eye out for this, and if it ever feels like your gun is not shooting straight, just make sure you slide, and that should fix the problem for you. Also, perhaps be a little bit more careful when sliding around rubble and debris until they get this bug fixed. And with that, this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. In your playtime so far with the Battlefield 6 Beta, have you run into this bug, or do you think you maybe have run into this bug? Or is it something you haven't noticed yet? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.